Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are taking a fascinating look at a name you absolutely know, but, well, maybe not quite in this light. We're talking about Charles Dickens. Now, most of us just know him as that quintessential 19th century British novelist, right? The guy who wrote those massive books we all had to read in school. But today, we're going to reframe him. We're looking at Dickens as a true social justice pioneer. Think of this explainer as exploring a kind of superhero's origin story, where incredible real-world hardship forged his literary superpowers and turned him into this tireless champion for the people.
Okay, let's dive right into this. To really understand Dickens, you have to picture the gritty reality of his world. I'm talking about the grim duality of London's industrialized society. The Victorian era was, an incredible time of massive contrasts. On the one hand, you had this glittering success, vast wealth, and rapid industrial progress. But right beneath that shiny surface, literally choked by smog and the terrible stench of the Thames, was grinding, desperate poverty. And Dickens found a genius way to bridge these two worlds. He took popular entertainment and completely fused it with fierce social denunciation, basically forcing polite society to look directly at the shadows they were so desperately trying to ignore.
So, that brings us to Section 1, the catalyst forged in the factory. To understand why he cared so deeply about those shadows, we really have to look at his past. His legendary empathy wasn't just theoretical, it was born from profound personal trauma. Born in 1812, his childhood took a really dark turn when his family fell into overwhelming debt. Actually, it was so bad that at just 12 years old, young Charles was pulled out of school and forced into manual labor at Warren's blacking factory. Imagine that for a second. Being a child, pasting labels onto pots of boot polish for 10 grueling hours a day in a dark, rat-infested warehouse just to pay off your family's debts. That trauma deeply defined his worldview. But instead of letting it destroy him, he channeled that pain, rising into his adulthood as an incredibly resonant, powerful voice in journalism and fiction. And of course, passing away in 1870, leaving behind a truly transcendent legacy.
And looking at where he ended up, it's just quite the incredible arc. His final resting place in Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey honors a man who truly wrote for the people and changed society through his words. I mean, going from a forgotten boy doing forced labor in a filthy factory to a celebrated hero of the people buried alongside kings and literary giants, it's a stunning testament to how he used his pain for a much greater purpose.
Moving on to Section 2, the weapon, fiction as social critique. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we move straight from the factory floor to the printed page. And this is where things get incredibly exciting. You definitely recognize these heavy hitters: Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, A Christmas Carol. People were so obsessed with his serial releases back then that crowds would literally swarm the docks in New York waiting for the next chapter to arrive by ship. No way, right? But these weren't just the blockbusters of the 19th century. They were stealthy vehicles for massive social change. Dickens took all of those traumatic experiences we just talked about and forged them into brilliant, highly effective literary weapons. He never wrote just to entertain. He was always on a mission. He executed that mission through this brilliant balancing act. To draw readers in, he deployed razor-sharp humor, biting satire, and a gallery of absolutely unforgettable, eccentric characters. People devoured his work because, well, it was genuinely fun and engaging. But while the audience was laughing at his satire or crying over his characters, he was delivering sharp, devastating criticism. He targeted the brutal workhouses seen in Oliver Twist, corrupt legal institutions, and the desperate realities of the lower classes. He basically snuck his fierce social critique right past their defenses using pure, unadulterated entertainment. It's brilliant.
Which leads us to Section 3, the impact, beyond the page, real reform.
You see, Dickens didn't just sit in a comfortable study writing stories and hoping for the best. His influence absolutely did not end when the book closed. He took his fight right into the real world. He had a really clear blueprint for action. Step 1, expose the harsh realities through his widely read fiction to wake up the public conscience. Step 2, act as a tireless lecturer, speaking directly to massive crowds and aggressively advocating for the vulnerable. And finally, Step 3, leverage all that fame into actual boots-on-the-ground activism. He helped fund safe houses for vulnerable women and aggressively pushed for clean water and sanitation reform. He was a powerhouse, championing structural changes for those who literally had no voice.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 4, a legacy of empathy.
Dickens passed away in 1870, but his legacy represents a fundamental shift in how we understand and portray each other in media today. He's remembered as a pioneer of English literary realism. So, the crucial point is, what that actually means for us is that he essentially invented a new way of using storytelling as a mass engine for social awareness. Before Dickens, literature rarely looked so unflinchingly at the poor, while still managing to completely captivate the masses. He successfully combined popular entertainment directly with social denunciation to expose the true and often terrible conditions of society.
And because of that innovative approach, his literary legacy transcends borders and generations to this day. Just think about it for a second. Terms like Scrooge or characters like Oliver holding up his bowl asking for more, they're deeply embedded in our cultural imagination. Even if you've never actually sat down and read his books cover to cover, I guarantee you speak his language. These terms and characters serve as a constant reminder of the importance of empathy. They keep his mission alive, asking us to look out for the vulnerable people in our own modern communities.
Which leads us perfectly to this final thought. Are we still using our collective cultural imagination to champion empathy today? Think about it. When you consume modern media, when you look at today's popular entertainment, is it just a distraction or is it exposing the realities of our world? Charles Dickens proved that art can literally change society by making us care about people we might otherwise just ignore. I really hope this explainer leaves you thinking about how his 19th century fight against social injustice applies to your own worldview right now. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and keep asking those important questions.